Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And I want to start by saying first, folks are still filing in because of the wonderful concert that the William Diamond Jr. Fife and Drum Corps gave us this morning outside. So that was a little bit of an addition to our program that we did recently, and we weren't quite sure how it was going to go. It went phenomenal. So give us just a few minutes while folks get the file in from being outside. Okay, I think the rest of the seats are taken by folks who are waiting in the lobby. So let's start the ceremony today. Good morning. I am Glenn Bassett, Colonel, retired, United States Marine Corps, and it is my honor to serve as your Master of Ceremonies this morning. On behalf of the Lexington Town Celebrations Committee, we welcome you on this Veterans Day 2022 as we pay tribute to our honored veterans. In the unlikely event of an emergency, there are exits on either side and also in the rear of the hall. So you can get out of this building either side, left, right, or even in the rear. You can also go the way you came in. Restrooms are also located, they're on the lower levels, and they're accessed by stairs or an elevator on either side of the building. We would now like to recognize all the veterans who are here today. I ask all veterans to stand and remain standing while the Lexington Scouts present each of you with a carnation as a token of appreciation for your service. Veterans, please stand. Thank you for your service, and everybody, Scouts, veterans, please take your seats. We are honored to welcome the following distinguished guests today. Please stand and remain standing as I call your name. Audience, please hold your applause until all guests have been introduced. Our state representative, Mr. Ken Gordon. Can't see him yet. From the Select Board, the Vice Chair, Mr. Doug Lucente. From the School Committee, Larry Freeman and Kathleen Lenahan. Our clergy, Pastor Richard Rhodes from Grace Chapel. And from Hanscom Air Force Base, Lieutenant Colonel Ian Coleman. Please join in a round of applause for our distinguished guests. Please take your seat. Now let us welcome our own Lexington Minutemen into the hall, led by Captain Commanding James Lee. We now welcome our Lexington Scouts, the Cub Scouts, the Girl Scouts, and the Boy Scouts into the hall. Let's give them a warm welcome. Okay, now that you've all taken your seat, please stand while the Lexington Police Honor Guard post the colors, and remain standing as the LHS band, under the direction of Justin Armati and Garrett Wallace, play our national anthem. Hand salute or place your right hand over your heart. Ready, two. Please remain standing. We begin this ceremony at the 11th hour to mark the signing of the original armistice that formally ended World War I on November 11th, 1918. As we observe this moment of silence, James Lee, Captain Commanding of the Lexington Minutemen Company, will ring the bell from the USS Lexington, CV-2, which was sunk in the Battle of the Coral Sea in 1942. Captain Lee will ring the bell 11 times to commemorate the signing of the armistice at the 11th hour on the 11th day of the 11th month. And during this moment, we offer grateful thanks for all veterans who have served their country in the past, for all those currently serving on active duty with our armed forces worldwide, and for those who have passed on, including Paul Mazarell, a Lexington veteran who passed on only this week. Thank you. Please be seated. I would like to take a moment to join with all my fellow Marines. Happy birthday, Marines. Marines were founded November 10th, 1775. It's our 247th birthday. Hoorah! Now I'd like to introduce Doug Lucente from the Lexington Select Board to offer greetings. Doug?
Good morning. It's my honor as the Vice Chair of the Lexington Select Board to be here today and to welcome all of you and all of our veterans to the ceremony on behalf of the Select Board. Welcome, veterans and current members of the military and our leadership from Hanscom Air Force Base. I want everyone to take a quick moment and look around the room. It may seem trivial, but it's truly wonderful to be back here in person in this hall for this ceremony. While many of us really enjoyed the Veterans Day car parades over the last 2 years, this is really the best way to tell our veterans with our words and with our faces and in person how much we appreciate them. A special thank you to the Town Celebrations Committee for your continued excellent work in making this event possible, and for your organization and energy today and last weekend to honor our veterans. And most importantly, thank you for recognizing and supporting them throughout the year. Also, thank you to our Human Services Department and especially our Veteran Services Officer, Gina Rada, for her leadership in serving all of our Lexington veterans, her efforts to provide assistance for the men and women who have served our nation should not go unnoticed. Additional thanks to the participants in today's ceremony, including the Lexington Minutemen, the Lexington Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, and Girl Scouts, the Lexington High School Band, which is doing an awesome job, and the Lexington Police Honor Guard. Veterans Day is always extra special in Lexington since we were home to some of the earliest veterans in our country's history. Since the first shots at Lexington and Concord were fired at our Revolutionary War, American men and women have been answering the nation's call to duty since that time. I realize that I'm standing here as a civilian and would not be standing here had I not been elected to the Select Board. I've never wore a uniform, I've never been to a battle, I've never had to leave my family to travel across the world or to defend our country. And I've not walked in the shoes of our veterans or lived your unique experiences of service. But I am standing here today as a grateful American and a grateful Lexingtonian. And on behalf of all grateful Lexingtonians who wish they could also reach out to you individually and thank you personally for your service. While I did never serve in the military, in my family, we have a special admiration for service and a long tradition of service. My father and all three of his brothers served in the military. 3 of my brothers served in the military, and 2 of my nephews recently finished serving. My dad served as an Army paratrooper in the 1950s. He often likes to remind my family members who are anxious to fly that on the very first airplane ride he took, he had to actually jump out of the plane. That puts things into perspective when you're complaining about legroom on your flight. All of my family members who served our country served with pride, but that service also came with sacrifice. It came with physical and emotional challenges for the years ahead. And part of our honoring those who serve also means that we need to continue to find ways to help our veterans and support their needs. And this includes destigmatizing the mental health needs of our veterans. We all need to do a better job of paying attention to the mental health needs of those who have served us. I'd like to take a moment to recognize that this past year we have lost some exceptional individuals who have served our country, and I know in a few moments we'll hear about Pat Flynn and all the great work from Pat, but I'd also like to take a moment, as Glenn alluded to, is that we lost Paul Mazeroll. Paul celebrated his 99th birthday on Sunday and then passed this past Tuesday. He was a veteran of World War II and then came to Lexington to raise his family and was a manager in our town's Parks Department for decades. He's also a White Hat recipient from 1989 and had many volunteer activities and was extremely dedicated to the town of Lexington. His funeral is this Monday at St. Bridget Church. I'll end with a quote from John Kennedy. He said, "As we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them." Thank you again to the residents of Lexington for continuously supporting our veterans, and thank you to our veterans for your service and to your families for their sacrifices. God bless all our veterans and those who have made the ultimate sacrifice, and may God continue to bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Lieutenant Colonel Ian Coleman is the Deputy Director of Contracting for the Command Control Communications Intelligence and Networks Program Executive Officer at Hanscom Air Force Base. He helps to manage a $15 billion contract portfolio to enhance and sustain cyberspace capabilities. We are grateful to have Hanscom Air Force Base as a valuable resource and neighbor, and we welcome Colonel Coleman for his remarks. Colonel.
Well, good morning. Thank you, Colonel, for the introduction and for being the Masters of Ceremonies today. Thank you for the wonderful reception, and I'm extremely honored to be a part of your amazing Veterans Day ceremony today. I would like to start by thanking all the veterans in attendance. Every veteran has raised their right hand and promised to support and defend our Constitution and our amazing nation. When democracy and freedom have been threatened, Americans have always stepped forward to keep our country and its citizens safe and free. America's veterans have always put on their uniforms, fought for the freedom of others, and the safety and livelihoods of those they left behind. The title of veteran can only be earned. So to all the veterans in the audience and to all veterans today, thank you for your service. Veterans do not serve alone, so I also must give a special thanks to all the friends and family of those veterans. When we are far away, it's the friends and family at home that keep us going. Thank you also to the communities, like Lexington, Massachusetts, and I speak on behalf of Hanscom Air Force Base and all the active duty personnel in the area. You truly are a community that supports our nation's military and our families, and when we're far from home, we know that they're in a good place here. So thank you for being such a great community to be part of. The defense of our nation and democracy falls on all of our shoulders. So again, thank you. Thank you for honoring our veterans today and their selfless service to our nation. Thank you for your time. And on behalf of Hanscom Air Force Base, thank you again for such an amazing ceremony, and happy Veterans Day.
On October 3rd of this year, beloved Lexington citizen, neighbor, volunteer, and military hero Pat Flynn was remembered with full military honors in a ceremony on the Lexington Green. Pat was a veteran of World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. He was an original member of the 10th Special Forces. He was a holder of 4 Purple Hearts. Here's a brief video of the highlights of this ceremony held for Pat just recently on the Lexington Green.
Decorated military hero who was laid to rest in the Arlington National Cemetery. When Captain Flynn retired from the military, he moved to Lexington, where he became a fixture in the community. His seemingly endless list of contributions culminated in him receiving the White Tricorn Hat Award in 2006. According to those in attendance, he was a selfless man of action and took great pride in making his community and country a better place.
We are honored to represent a grateful nation for Captain Flynn as we celebrate and always remember his valiant service to our country. Captain Flynn is the recipient of the Combat Infantry Badge, also known as the CIB. Captain Flynn earned the CIB 3 separate times, denoted in his award of the CIB with 2 stars. This 2-star award is one of the most rare awards, as less than 250 soldiers have been awarded it. The CIB with 2 stars is more rare than the Congressional Medal of Honor.
Courageous, kind, dedicated, humble, sincere, altruistic, hardworking, honest, high attention to detail, good sense of humor, always prepared. These are just a few of the words you could use to describe Pat Flynn. However, the one word that resonates with me most is devoted. Pat was truly devoted to his wife, Edith, his country, and his community. It is for his devotion to his country and his community that I offer the following proclamation from the Town of Lexington Select Board on behalf of a grateful community. We, the Select Board of the Town of Lexington, Massachusetts, hereby recognize and honor posthumously Winston E. Pat Flynn and name Monday, October 3rd, 2022 as Winston E. Pat Flynn Day in the Town of Lexington.
I'm honored to participate in the ceremony today to recognize Pat Flynn. I'm here not only representing the Lexington Lions Club, but also, more importantly, the White Tricorn Hat Award. On Patriots Day, April 17th, 2006, Winston E. Pat Flynn was chosen as the 2006 White Tricorn Hat recipient.
Pat organized and served as the first chairman of the Lexington Outstanding Youth Award Committee. The idea of a youth award was born during discussions with the Lexington police officers and based on the consideration that too often public and media attention is focused only on delinquent kids, while no heed is paid to the town's outstanding students, and there are so many positive contributions. The youth award was swiftly implemented in the town with full approval and support.
What better way to honor Pat's memory than to establish an award in his name that recognizes an outstanding graduating high school senior. As a result of collaborations among the Lexington Veterans Association, Edith Flynn, the Town of Lexington, and the Lexington Youth Commission, I'm proud to announce the creation of the Pat Flynn Youth Award and the Pat Flynn Youth Award Fund. The fund has been established to be managed by the Town of Lexington. Donations may be made directly to the town of Lexington, care of the Pat Flynn Youth Award. And yes, this is a solicitation.
Lexington Minutemen are proud to be among the first contributors to the Pat Flynn Youth Award Fund. And we do this in recognition of Pat Flynn and in honor of the men, Captain John Parker's company. Thank you.
I am more than honored to be asked to say a few words about one of America's finest soldiers, caring husband, and our Special Forces brother and father, Pat Flynn. I've never met a man more humble than Pat Flynn, a warrior who answered the call not one, but on 3 separate occasions in 3 separate wars, with each a completely different warfare. He was so humble in sharing his stories with us, and he would always ask about ours and want to know our stories as well. He could have ridden out the rest of his career behind a desk after the Korean War and enjoying the rewards of being one of the few combat vets still in service. But Pat was personally recruited by the father of Special Forces, Colonel Aaron Bank, for his leadership and his combat experience. Pat didn't think twice about that request, and he was on the first flight off to Fort Bragg to become one of the originals. An outfit of the Army's best and most rebellious men that pushed the limits of their own minds and bodies and possessed that indomitable spirit to never quit. Without heroes like Pat Flynn, who fearlessly walked into the unknown alongside Colonel Aaron Bank and believed in his vision of an unconventional American guerrilla fighting force, and became the foundation of our history. We are honored to continue this legacy, and we will never forget where we came from. I am truly graced and humbled to have known Pat for 10 years and share his stories with my family and with my teammates.
Don McKenna, the former chair of the Lexington Tourism Committee, who worked closely with Pat Flynn, will offer a brief tribute. Don?
As you are all aware by now, Pat had an incredible military career. What is amazing is that I did not know any of that until recently. The Pat I met 35 years ago when I was appointed to the Town Celebrations Committee was a humble man who always let others speak first. Pat's smile immediately drew me in. Pat was, in many ways, ahead of his time. At a time when committee leadership in Lexington was mostly men, Pat asked me to be his vice chairman. I was a mother with 2 young kids, and many thought I could not handle the position. Not Pat, he encouraged me. Pat embraced my kids and made them feel he depended on their help. When I asked my daughter what came to mind when she thought of Pat's, her first words were teddy bear. After years of walking up and down the parade route between the morning parade ceremonies and the afternoon parade, we secured the use of golf carts instead of our feet. Pat must have seen my 8-year-old looking longingly at him driving the cart. Despite running a massive celebration, before I knew it, Pat picked Ashley up and dressed in her brownie uniform, Pat made her part of the logistics team, even taking her to the pancake breakfast as if she was a member of the committee. We served together for 10 years, meeting regularly at the visitor center where he held court and let everyone have their say, always ensuring that we kept in mind that the celebrations we put on were for Veterans Memorial and Patriots Days, honored those who had served. I often went with Pat after festivities as he checked all the locations to make sure veterans' graves were decorated with flags and reset any wreaths that may not have been securely placed during ceremonies. We spent countless hours together. Remarkably, Edith never pressured him to finish. So I was surprised to learn in the incredible tribute to Pat, fittingly held on the battle green that we just saw, that Edith rarely got to celebrate her birthday until Patriots Day weekend had passed. You see, Edith's birthday is April 19th. Only Pat would find a wife with a birthday that honors our first veterans. In recognition of all the birthdays that were delayed while Pat served others, I have brought to you today, Edith, a cupcake. And thank you for sharing Pat with all of us.
Thank you, Don. Please welcome Jim Shaw, the publisher of the Lexington Times, for some remembrances of Pat Flynn. Jim.
Thank you, Colonel. It's quite an honor to be here with all of you today. I was particularly touched by the video, and I'm honored to say that that was produced by my son, Devin, who works over at LexMedia. I thought he did a wonderful job. I'm honored to be here today as we remember our friend Pat, or Winston Pat Flynn. Pat had a profound ability to connect with people and earn their respect. He had that effect on me, like my late father. Pat inspired me towards community service. He did this through deeds and actions. He walked the walk. He showed us by example what it means to be a good citizen. Pat was a hero in service to his country and service to his neighbors as well. By now, we all know the story about sacrifice and dedication during his long and celebrated career as a member of the Green Berets. But he was also committed to making Lexington a better place through his more than 30 years of service and countless organizations that he served with. I first met Pat while he was serving on the Lexington Celebrations Committee. I knew then that this was a special man. He helped me to better understand the meaning of giving back to your community. He helped me to fully appreciate Lexington's special place in American history. Recognizing the dedication and contributions of Lexington's youngest citizens was very important to Pat. That is why he spearheaded the effort to establish Lexington's Outstanding Youth Award. And it's fitting that going forward, a youth award will be named in his honor. He really did encourage our youngest citizens to stay involved and find their own place in this community. As I said, Pat inspired me towards community service. It's no coincidence that, like Pat, I also served on the town celebrations committee, and like Don, and so many others. I also became a Rotarian. Pat was a Rotarian, and he was also a Paul Harris Fellow, and I am distinguished as a Paul Harris Fellow as well. I've been with the Lexington Rotary Club for over 25 years. But what's most profound for me is joining Pat after being named last year's recipient of the Lexington Lions Club White Tricorn Hat Award. I always thought, when I look at the folks who receive that recognition, I hold them in such reverence because those are the folks that really have truly made a difference in our community over the years, and I was absolutely flabbergasted when I was selected last year to serve. And my only regret was that Pat couldn't be there to help me celebrate that recognition, having lost him earlier that year. I also want to take a moment. Now, I'm just becoming aware of the passing of Paul Mazerow. I had not heard that. Paul was also a White Tricorn Hat recipient and another person who made a huge difference in this community. And I did have the honor of seeing and speaking with Paul maybe 2 weeks ago. So and he seemed okay, and that's why I'm surprised to hear that he's now gone. But we'll keep him in our thoughts and prayers. I'll just finish with this. People in life, you come across people that make differences to you. My father was one of those people. Pat Flynn was one of those people. I dare say that without mentors in my life, with people like Pat Flynn, I wouldn't be standing here today talking with you. My life would be very different. He made a difference in my life. He made a difference in the lives of so many people. And I know this is a Veterans Day celebration, but I think my mission today was to remind people that he was a soldier for Lexington as well, and made a difference. I'm eternally grateful to Pat for his friendship and guidance. He made a difference in people's lives, and we are all better for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. And now let us enjoy a patriotic flute medley from the Lexington High School Band. Thank you very much. That was wonderful. Many people here in town do not know that Lexington is home to the first woman ever to serve as the head of one of the nation's military services. That woman is Sheila Woodnall, our guest speaker, who served as Secretary of the Air Force under President Clinton from 1993 to 1997. Now an institute professor at MIT, Dr. Woodnall was the first woman appointed to MIT's engineering faculty. She taught aeronautics, astronautics, and engineering for 56 years before her retirement in 2020. She is a past president of the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics and the American Association for the Advancement of Science, and holds numerous awards and memberships in academic societies. We are honored to welcome Dr. Sheila Woodnall to offer her perspective on this Veterans Day. Sheila.
So as we celebrate the accomplishments and the importance of the U.S. military, I think back to their role in creating the United States as an independent country. The role of the Lexington military was historical. As most of you know, the battles of Lexington and Concord, fought on April 19th of 1775, kicked off the American Revolutionary War. Tensions had been building for many years between residents of the 13 American colonies and the British authorities, particularly in Massachusetts. Yeah, put that down? Great, thank you very much. On the night of April 18th, 1775, hundreds of British troops marched from Boston to nearby Concord in order to seize an army cache. Paul Revere and other riders sounded the alarm, and the colonial mission men began mobilizing. The riders sounded the alarm, and the colonial militiamen began mobilizing to intercept the Redcoat column. A confrontation on the Lexington Green started off the fighting, and soon the British were hastily retreating under intense fire. Many more battles followed, and in 1783, the colonists formally won their independence. We celebrate these events every year on the Lexington Green and at the Concord Bridge. If you ask a veteran to name the life experiences that have literally changed the direction of their life, there's a good chance that military service will be at the top or near the top of that list. Why do you think that is? I believe that values are a big part of the answer. In most cases, although many civilians organizations have value statements, in most cases they are not as deeply shared by the members as they are in the military. In the military, they are upfront and deeply held. They become a part of us. They influence how we live our lives. Values like honor, courage, service, discipline, commitment, sacrifice, and duty. During my tenure as Secretary of the Air Force, I promoted a set of core values that were adopted throughout the Air Force: integrity, excellence in all we do, and service above self. These values have been instilled in every Air Force member since that time, and it is one of my proudest accomplishments. Today, when I attend an Air Force briefing, I see these core values inscribed below on the master slide. I doubt that the presenter had any understanding of my relationship to his master slide, and that's the way it should be. As Secretary, I traveled to many Air Force bases speaking to airmen to raise their commitments to the values of the Air Force. I used the values of the Air Force Academy as an example of a value statement, although at that time the Air Force did not actually have a value statement. I recall one time after such a discussion that the base commander replied that these values should be displayed on every Air Force base. I took that idea and went forward to establish these values across the entire Air Force. The U.S. military is a very special institution. The statement of core values held dear by the services builds a platform of trust within and across the services and with the American people. I know that you all know these values, but I will recite them to build this platform. For the Army, loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, and integrity, personal courage. For the Navy and the Marines, honor, courage, commitment. For the Coast Guard, honor, respect, devotion to duty. And for the Air Force, integrity first, service before self, excellence in all we do. The responsibilities of the Secretary of the Air Force are, as stated, to organize, train, and equip. What was important to me as Secretary: values, discipline, technology, flying, interacting with, and strengthening the Air Force. I did have the opportunity to fly almost every Air Force airplane, both here and abroad. I recall taking a trip to California with President Bill Clinton on Air Force One. When he remarked that he had been able to take a nap on the plane, I remarked, "It's a good thing you were asleep. I was flying the plane." I flew with the Thunderbirds twice in their high show, pulled 9Gs, and flew supersonic in an F-15. I also helped to deliver a C-17 to Charlotte, South Carolina, where my nephew was a C-17 pilot. I did extensive travel to bases in the U.S. and abroad. I met with foreign leaders, typically secretaries of defense, senior military officers, and Air Force Chief of Staff. The military also functions as one of the most important educational institutions in the nation. The military enrolls young people just out of high school, provides them with the education and training that they need to carry out the missions that they have chosen, and this education and training persists throughout their career as they move to higher level with more responsibility. At the college and university level, the role of military is substantial. In addition to the military academies whose academic programs are excellent, the military also operates ROTC programs in most universities across the nation. These young officers graduate with the necessary skills for their first assignment, and their training continues as they progress in their careers. So the challenges faced by the Air Force are budget, personnel, development of new technology, and cost overruns. During my time as secretary, we were concerned with the C-17, the F-22, the F-35, launch vehicle EELVs, satellites, and BRAC, the base closure process. I removed 2 Air Force bases from the possible BRAC closure list. One was Hanscom, because of the strong and important interaction with Lincoln Lab and the New England electronics and computer industry, and McCord Air Force Base, because of the strong interaction with Army Base Fort Lewis. When I came to the Air Force, our ability to launch satellites with accidents was too low. I began the EELV program, which led to the development of the Atlas V and the Delta IV launch vehicles. These vehicles have provided about 135 launches of Air Force payloads without a single accident. Let's talk about leadership. The military pays extreme attention to the development of leadership. It is essential to the achievement of our mission. Given the structure of the chain of command, it is clear that all members of the military have individual responsibilities for carrying out the mission. Given the separation of military units scattered around the world, it is clear that each individual unit must be prepared to carry out its responsibilities without detailed oversight of senior officers. Essentially, everyone in the Air Force is a leader with responsibilities for the mission. When I was secretary, I was remarkably impressed by the fact that the typical military officer spends about 1/3 of their time in some form of training or education. I think few civilian organizations put such resources into education and training. I believe that leadership development is a primary focus of much of this education. Also, as members of the military move from assignment to assignment, carefully chosen, they acquire experience and skills that enhance their leadership abilities. Branches of the military have clearly stated missions based on challenges, competency, and experience. I will focus on the Air Force since I was more deeply involved. The one-liner statement of the Air Force mission, as presented in our long-range global engagement report, issued under my leadership in 1997, was to defend the United States through the control and exploitation of air and space. A more important statement that appears in that report was, we are now transitioning from an Air Force to an Air and Space Force, on our way to a Space and Air Force. We are on our way. I would like to thank the Lexington Town Celebrations Committee for bringing us all together today to reflect on and to celebrate the contributions of the military to our society and our place in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Woodnell. Michael Egbert is a history teacher at Lexington High School. He feels strongly that our high school students will benefit from a greater understanding of Veterans Day and what it means to be a veteran. In collaboration with the Town Celebrations Committee, Michael encourages his students each year to write an essay about Veterans Day. He has inspired fellow teachers, Thomas Cunningham and Bryce Spalding, to encourage essays from their students as well, and we thank them all for honoring our veterans in this way. This year, we received 23 essays. The Celebrations Committee is impressed with the quality and excellence of these submissions, and we thank the students for investing their time in this endeavor. We believe this has enabled them to see things from the veterans' point of view and to gain an understanding of the values of service and dedication. We have invited 2 students to share their essays with you today. To read our first essay, The Price of Our Freedom, please welcome Annie Phan.
When asked about Veterans Day, we often conjure images of soldiers marching through enemy territory mid-war, dodging bombs and throwing grenades at enemy lines overseas. However, we often forget that even when there is no great power war to fight, our freedom still comes at a cost during peacetime. Every day, soldiers from all ranks and backgrounds in the U.S. undergo merciless training and respond to national and international crisis. One such soldier was Nicholas Zalis, a veteran of the Air Force serving 40 years and achieving the rank of colonel. Germany, August 28, 1988. Everything began according to plan. An air show began at the USAF Ramstein Air Base as 10 Italian demonstration jets formed a pierced heart maneuver. 9 jets formed a heart above the audience, but the 10th jet streaked in, slamming into the heart-forming group and sending shrapnel and wire plunging from the air. The aircrafts fell from the sky, colliding into the ground. Zalis was part of the response team, and the experience was horrifying. Dozens of people were instantly killed. Others were heavily wounded by the flying debris, a bloody reminder of the fragility of the human body. Zalis had to wrap those who died in sheets without gloves and ship them to a local morgue, knowing that the families who would grieve as he delivered them one by one, there was nothing that could be done. Zalis explains that during military service, soldiers were trained to do things without thinking. Even while removing bodies, while watching those nearby get injured and die, those serving in the military are taught to suppress it. Choosing to defend lives just required this numbness to disaster, a stoic acceptance of tragedy that would happen every day. It wasn't until 2 weeks after the 1988 Ramstein air crisis did he and his soldiers begin breaking down. There simply wasn't a way to make anyone completely desensitized. Amid all the violence, the horrors can only be delayed. Yet over and over again, Zalis chose to put on his uniform, knowing that each time he did, he was risking his life. Not everyone had the stomach to numb themselves and take on the crisis that he saw every day. But Zalis knew that his service was paying back for the privilege of living in a free country. The freedom we are afforded in the U.S. to control the policies that govern us, to speak and write freely without a tyrant's noose strangling our every word, is a gift from our veterans who created and defended it through decades of history. Whether it be during peacetime, during periods of conflicts, millions of American soldiers surrender their hearts and their lives so that millions of others across the country can maintain this freedom for just another day. These periods of peace are only possible because our veterans have been carrying the burden of security for us, walking and working through hell every day. The fight and sacrifice they make must not be in vain. The rights our veterans fought for us were not made for us to deny them to others, but to empower and expand them to create a better future for all, to proudly sustain and persistently better a country that has a 245-year legacy behind it. So on Veterans Day, we are reminded to honor and respect the individuals who have defended our country and our values for decades. we are reminded of our country's heroes.
Thank you, Annie, for pointing out so eloquently that military service does not always involve battlefield warfare, but still demands a heavy personal toll. Now, please welcome Aditya Rao, who will read his essay entitled "One of the Last Remaining Veterans Tells Their Tale." Aditya.
One of the last remaining voices tells their tale. The day is Tuesday, June 6th, 1944. The place, Utah Beach. Joe Papandrea disembarks from his transport boat off the French coast, bobbing along the floor using only one leg. His job is to make landfall alive and in one piece, a task made all the more difficult by minefields hidden underwater by the Nazis, his first combat experience, and most of all, his inability to swim. Until the outbreak of the war, Mr. Papandrea had been working in a weapons factory in Springfield, and after passing on a deferment and enlisting, he was eventually called on and shipped out to England to begin preparing for the D-Day invasion. He recounts how the landing ships gathered at a location dubbed Piccadilly Circus off the coast of Normandy prior to landing, so named to confuse the Nazis. After landing on the beaches, Mr. Papandrea was eventually tasked with clearing the Normandy hedgerows, a thorn in the Allies' side. This job was initially very dangerous, as not only could he be attacked by hidden Nazis, but Nazi aerial planes could also spot and destroy him. As a result of this, he learned to distinguish between the choppy-sounding Nazi engine and the smooth-sounding American engine. After the landings, Mr. Papandrea worked to fix and maintain the guns and tanks of the American Army, often driving around in a Jeep around former battlefields and securing the weapons of dead Americans. At this point, Mr. Papandrea recounted many of his military memories. He reminisced about the hilarity of the town of Bitch constantly changing hands between the Americans and the Nazis. Additionally, he remembered how one night, as he and his buddies were sleeping on a hill, one of his buddies woke up dreaming that they were going to get shelled. The group reluctantly moved to a different hill, only to awake to the sound of the hill that they were previously on being shelled. Lastly, on another night, Mr. Papandrea went to sleep in a cavernous room along with several other fellow soldiers. However, when the guards were not relieved, they eventually went to awake the next shift, only to find that they were suffering from carbon monoxide poisoning. All the people in the room were dragged outside, narrowly escaping death, and Mr. Papandrea remembers how he was able to hear but not view other people. By the winter of 1944 to 1945, Mr. Papandrea, under the command of General Patton, participated in liberating the besieged town of Bastogne in a winter that he recounts as being unusually harsh and frigid. He was quite proud to serve under General Patton, a man whom he held up with much reverence for not blindly following orders, but instead using critical thinking to always determine the most effective and successful plan of attack possible from his orders. As spring arrived in 1945, Mr. Papandrea recounts how everyone knew that the end of the Nazis was coming soon. However, a couple of days before VE Day, his buddies and him were given the choice to either play music for officers in Germany or return home. Upon opting to play music, Mr. Papandrea drove a Red Cross truck into Paris to purchase instruments, where he traded a chocolate bar for a clarinet. It was in Paris where he learned of the war's end, though instead of coming home, he decided to tour around Germany for the next several months, in addition to playing on top of the Eiffel Tower with jazz legend Django Reinhardt and meeting his extended family in France. On February 5th, 2022, Joseph Papandrea passed away at the age of 101. When asked about his secret to long life, Mr. Papandrea replied that one should respect all people, regardless of who they are. Additionally, they must always stay curious and be constantly learning. He believed that These straightforward tasks were the key to living a meaningful life, and the years will naturally follow. When I first reached out to Mr. Papandrea, almost 2 years ago now, I did so with the intention of hearing from one of the last remaining voices of World War II before they cannot be heard anymore. However, he was happy to shy away from the, quote, gore of war. He demonstrated how, as we remember the memories of the veterans who served us, we mustn't glorify the violence they experienced, as it distorts the true horrors of war for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Aditya, for your story of a soldier who faced danger and death countless times, still managed to find joy in their midst. Now, Annie told the story of Captain Nick Zallis, whose bravery and quick thinking saved many lives at a tragic air show crash. I'm pleased to announce that part of the Zallis family is here today, and I'd like them to stand to introduce them. Would Nick's wife, Maria Zallis, is Aphrodite Pathanaza? Aphrodite. Okay, great, thank you. Oh, and is your grandmother here? Your grandmother, Maria? Oh, and the daughter of Joseph Papandrea. Would you stand? Thank you. Thank you to the Zallis family and the Papandrea family. Now, the committee would also like to highlight 2 students for honorable mention in the essay contest. I guess it's not a contest, really, in the essay project. Ishan Tipirani for his essay entitled Father. Yeah, stand up. And Mahi Mershandani, I hope I got her name right. Mashi Mershandani, please stand for her. And Mahi's project, her essay was on the World War II monument that's on the battle green. Thank you very much. Well, we cannot invite all the students to read their essays. We can share them with you in the booklet that you received today, or you can still get today, in the lobby. So make sure you got a booklet that looks like this. It's all the essays for this year's essay project. I'd also like to recognize the proud family members who are here to cheer on their essayists. So we also have some essay finalists with us. Anybody involved in the essay project, would you please stand so we can give you a warm welcome? I now invite Ashley Rooney, the member of the Town Celebrations Committee, to tell us about a new event introduced this year. It's called the Lexington History Hunt. Ashley.
Thank you. With this sesquicentennial coming up, we thought it would be interesting to look at the many ways that our town has served our country. So we had a questionnaire. Unfortunately, nobody answered the questionnaire. I had it all sorts of places. I did find the Tourism Bureau. They were all trying to answer the questions. So we decided to bring it to you all today so you will know the answers when the sesquicentennial comes. Feel free to shout out your answers or tell your neighbor. How many Minutemen are buried at the Revolutionary War Memorial? 7. How many Lexingtonians died in World War II? We worked hard on this as a committee. The answer is 55. There's a new plaque right out there. The old burying ground is the resting place of early Lexington citizens, soldiers from the Revolutionary and Civil Wars, and even a British soldier. Why the British soldier? Because he died here at Buckman Tavern, and we buried him in our cemetery. Where did the Minutemen gather early on April 19th, 1775? Nobody has an answer? How about Buckman Tavern? How about the Green? 2 messengers from Boston set out to warm the villagers of Lexington on the evening of April 18th, 1775. Who were they? Revere and Galt. Good. Now we have some answers. How many ships named Lexington are memorialized? 5. Right. The 6th thing is a little plaque memorializing them. 2 generals visited Monroe Tavern in the 1700s. Can you name them? One was Washington and one was Percy before him. Where is Captain Parker's command inscribed from the morning of April 19th, 1775? On the green. I heard it up there. Lexington Monroe Cemetery is home to our only Congressional Medal of Honor recipient. Who is he? Cosgrove. Who said that? That was right. One Lexington family lost 2 sons in the American Civil War. What was the family's name? This was a hard one. It took me a while to find this plaque. The name is Fisk, and the answer is right here in Cary Hall, up those stairs. Near the town pool, there's a memorial for a young man who died in service during the U.S. invasion of Grenada. Who was he? Somebody said the name. You're right. You're right. Jim got it right. Very good. Now you all know the answers for the sesquicentennial, and when the tourists come, you can shout them out proudly. Thank you.
So that's proof that history can be fun, especially when you have somebody like Ashley helping you. All right, and now as our ceremony draws to a close, the Lexington High School Band will play the 5 service songs. Veterans and your family members, please stand when the song for your branch of the service is played. In honor of Veterans Day, members of the Never Fading Poppy Project will present each veteran with a beautiful handmade card as you stand. So as your service song gets played, please stand. And if you're a family member of a veteran, please stand as well. great. Thank you very much. All right, now, please, I'm going to ask you to rise in a minute for the singing of God Bless America, accompanied by the Lexington High School Band, and then we will retire the colors. Or are we going to, Linda, are we retiring the colors? Yes, we are. So, we're going to first retire the colors. So I'm going to ask you to stand, then I'm going to call the police honor guard to come in and retire the colors. And then please remain standing at that point, and that's when the LHS band will sing, or will start to play God Bless America, and you are more than welcome to sing along to God Bless America. The Lexington Police Honor Guard will now retire the colors. Hand salute or place your right hand over your heart. Ready, two. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our ceremony. On behalf of the Town of Lexington and the Town Celebrations Committee, I thank you for joining us today and for honoring our veterans, past and present. Good day.